You all. Welcome you to the Women Eco Artist Dialogue, Art and Activism, number 15, to spotlight the work of amazing Weed Seed member, Betsy Damon. Weed founded in 1996 as a volunteer-run collective of female identifying visual artists, writers, curators, art historians, researchers, scientists, and other interested in highlighting the intersection of art and ecology and ecological issues. I'm Leah. We have board member Kaylin here with us, our Weed team co-chair Mary White.
Deanna.
Thank you for logging on and being here from all over. Thank you.
We'll start with the land acknowledgement, and we invite you to type in your location and land acknowledgement in the chat. Weed's office sits on the territory of the Huichen, the ancestral and unceded land of the Chichonyo-speaking Ohlone people, the successors of the sovereign Verona Band of Alameda County. They're one of the largest shell mounds in the Bay Area. The land was and continues to be of great importance to the Muwekmi Ohlone tribe and other familiar descendants of the Verona Band. We recognize the Muwekmi Ohlone tribe, who are campaigning to become federally recognized, the Association of Ramaytush Ohlone, who are researching, revitalizing, and preserving Ramaytush Ohlone history and culture, and the Confederated Village of Lejean and the Socorro-Te Land Trust, who are working to return native land back to Indigenous stewardship in Berkeley and Oakland, right around us.
Thank you. And a little Zoom housekeeping before we begin. We are recording this presentation currently, so please keep your audio muted during the presentation when Betsy is presenting, unless you're prompted to share your response or to unmute. And the host may mute you as well if there is extra noise going on. And if you have questions during the presentation, please put them in the chat for the question section. We will stop the first recording after the presentation and immediately start a second recording for the Q&A. So just be aware of that. And here is the co-chair, Mary White, again to introduce Betsy.
Welcome, everybody. Betsy uses the quote, "Water doesn't adopt to life, life adopts to water." Art and activism have been the center of Betsy Damon's work since 1985, when she cast a dry riverbed of handmade paper in memory of clean water. In the years since, Damon has challenged herself to figure out what it would mean to take water as our teacher. This has led her to the idea that water isn't a noun, but a verb. She founded Keepers of the Water in 1990 and designed the Living Water Garden in Chengdu, China in 1997. Her subsequent art works create moments of interaction between people and water, inviting a new kind of consciousness towards Earth's living systems. Her work reveals water as a connective, creative, collaborative medium behind all life. Betsy transverses the complexities of water from a molecular state to the levels of ecosystems and societies. And I know if you're interested, and I urge you to get Betsy's book, which is available at betsydamon.com. We'll put that in the link. Betsy just got a 2023 Guggenheim Fellow Award, and she's been called a practical visionary and a humanist. Her work has been widely reviewed, exhibited, and taught, and she's known for her performance work, like the 7,000-year-old woman in 1976, and then later her work was in Chengdu and other parts of China. She's directed many collaborative public performance events, and in both China and Tibet. And her past awards in not only include the Guggenheim Foundation, but the Bush Foundation, Heinz Foundation, NEA, UN Habitat Waterfront Center Top Award, well, I'm probably reading this wrong, but the Waterfront Center top award of and 5 awards from the ASLA and others. And in 2022, a solo exhibit of Damon's work was held at the La Mama Galleria in Manhattan. So Betsy's for 4 decades, her work is focused on water, and she reveals connective and creative and collaborative medium behind all life, water. Her work traverses the complexities of water and is extraordinary to hear about. She's going to be leading a in-person workshop in the Sierras, October 13th and 15th, which is co-organized by Keepers of the Water, the Wisdom Watershed Council, and we. So we encourage you to think about coming to the Sierras, to rough and ready California for a workshop. As Betsy quotes from Lao Tzu, the sage's transformation of the world arises from solving the problem of water. So welcome, Betsy.
Wow, okay, Mary. Thank you.
So now you're going to screen share and we'll start the presentation.
There, okay. There, here we go. Okay, before I start, it doesn't just go away. Before I start, I wanted each person to say like just 3 words. Can I see everybody? I can't see everybody. Oh, yeah.
You won't be able to see everybody in this mode, but later on we can.
Okay. I didn't want it to go forward. Oh, it did go forward. Let's go back. Okay. Well, just think to yourself then, right now, just 5 words of something you absolutely love about this world, this life, the living system. I wanted everybody to say it out loud, but just think to yourself. How do I make it go forward? Okay. So basically, and I'll apologize if I'm scattered. It's been a very crazy month with anywhere from memorial services for my brother to what I'm doing right now is in Pennsylvania, the birthday party, and just all kinds of family things. And the most, I'm going to go backward just a tiny bit for people who aren't familiar with my work, but I'm not going to talk about it a lot. And I'm going to say that my preoccupation is that water is the consciousness of our planet. It's the consciousness in all life. It's how species intercommunicate, everything like that. That's biochemist. It's not woo-woo science. So my main preoccupation is how to bring forward or be part of listening to the waters and inviting a consciousness about what the water is telling us. So our future is dependent on us becoming deeply rooted in a kinship with the living system. Our future is in community and collaboration. This was my first street piece in 76, a 7,000-year-old woman, and she has become kind of like my avatar or whatever you want to say that, but she taught me a lot. I didn't say a word for 2 hours. I just cut the bags off. I went on to do but I realized, and I will go on a circular journey almost, that when I did a meditation with stones for the healing of the planet was the first time that I invited people literally to heal each other with the natural energies. And it always worked. It always worked. I ended up doing it once at a huge concert. and wherever a person had an ache on their body, somebody placed a stone on them. And I made it much more formal than these first two pieces, but it was the first one. And go forward. But I ended up passing a driveway riverbed in handmade paper after taking a 7-week camping trip with my children across the United States. Now, I did that to heal our relationship. Things had been really a bummer. And there's nothing like being in a car and in a tent and outdoors for 7 weeks. There's no substitute for such a thing. When I went, I noticed that the riverbeds across the United States were dry. I said, what happened? Because I had done this camping trip with my family too. And they're dry from damming and they're dry from overuse. That's 1985. And I called this piece A Memory of Clean Water. People told me I was exaggerating, but the covers of Time magazine and Newsweek in '89 both had that were drying up. How long ago was that? 30 years ago. So this is the piece installed. It did go to museums. It did change my life. So I had to I made a commitment when I was doing that piece to give my life to water. One day I stared up at the stars and I realized that the riverbed and the Milky Way were one. And I don't know, I just said, how do I do this? I don't know what I'm going to do, but I know nothing about water. I've got to learn about water. Well, I've been learning about water ever since. And in the course of learning about water, there's so much I could say, and a lot of it's in the book. I ended up in China on an anonymous grant. I can spend all night with this story, but with no permissions on a tourist visa and 25 around my waist to go and direct some to address their water. And here we are, we didn't know what to do. This is, the woman's my assistant. The man here is helping, he's a scholar. And we ended up down here trying to figure out, okay, what are we going to do? How do we start? Well, this is the confluence of two rivers at a very ancient town. And so we imagined ourselves in the Tang Dynasty and made up all kinds of stories, but we returned to this village several times. I began meeting with people on the streets. And ended up, after 2 months of organizing, in between I went to the headwaters of the Yangtze River. We ended up doing 2 weeks of performance events along the river. Now, I didn't make a miracle, okay? There's a basic deep love and connection that the Chinese have to their systems. And even though everything I did was forbidden, we got to do it. So this was a parade to start our events. We were staying in there was these guest houses in the university, and the water had been turned off in the guest house. And actually the people who worked there thought we were demonstrating against them, but we weren't. Anyway, we went down to the river. And this piece had the leaders of the city cheering, because their city the waters used to be so clean here that the silk merchants polished their silk in this river. So this silk turned gray. And but once we did that piece, we were just a shoo-in for everything else that we did. And I had to tell the Chinese artists, you can't use me to do a fuck you to your government. And I said it exactly that way. Now, the thing about them, which is utterly amazing, okay, this is sewer, is that they did things that in our country we would never do and never touch. We can't imagine getting that embedded in anything that we would imagine is dirty or not. So I learned a great deal from them, and we all learn from each other. But this is Jin, and she has become very famous. But she froze river water. She got a company to take the ice for her, and then she invited the public to wash it clean. Now that's sewer water. So we had to have a guard there all the time, and kids wanted to eat it and other things, but it's a perfect piece. I'm just going to go on. This is kind of what it was like where we were. That I hung a white cloth over every sewer outlet. And I just put this in as a street scene. I'm going to go a little quickly. There's another cloth with a. When everybody had finished their work, they said, Betsy, you haven't done anything. And I said, well, I didn't have any time. So they said, we'll help you. So they helped me put white sheets over every sewer outlet. And the bottom half would turn brown or black and the top half. I also picked up 4 Tibetan artists when I rode illegally over a mountaintop in a bus to Lhasa after going to headwaters of the Yangtze. So and this is like a $10 piece, crossing the river. This is what the Tibetans did to, at the end of everything. I'm not going to explain it, but I'm going to share a few images because there's many more things I just want to talk about later. He's stamping the water with a beautifully carved water stamp. So that's the desert for water. And this is one of the most successful pieces, is a bulletin board about water. Our faces are being decayed by the water. And the head of the EPA and the vice mayor of the city signed the bulletin board, we knew we had gotten somewhere. And I was asked to come and see what they were doing in Chengdu by the government. And they took me and I got to see their plans. Okay, they planned and did execute parkland on both sides of the inner city river, 16 kilometers, no economic development, all green, all green. There is no such thing in America. There's no such thing. There's no such thing in Europe as that decision. And that set this city up to be the greenest city in China. Okay, in the process of talking with them, I said, why don't you make a park to teach the citizens how nature cleans water? And that's how the Living Water Garden came about. They said to me, can you do that? And I had never done it, but I nodded. And I think many people on this call have also seen this. And if you're very curious about it, you can go on my website and find it. I'll run through some of it. So it had been my dream in Minnesota to do such a thing on a small scale, but nobody understood what I was saying when I said living water. And I didn't understand that they didn't understand until I got to China, where they did understand. So I was like, how come? And so it's a 6-acre park. It cleans water. It's a model scientifically done by a hydraulic engineer. And I made the flow forms. I designed them. The guy in England wanted too much money. This is the wetlands. There's 7 wetland ponds. I persuaded them to take the wall down. The biggest debated problem was to take the wall down because no one could imagine steps into a river, and they saw that as taking all this land away from the people, rather than you step down to the river and you expand everything. And they really couldn't see that. And what you learn is that the things that we think are totally normal, or they thought were totally normal, are different. And that there's many, many points of view and how to imagine things we've never imagined before. This is a celebration fountain. Now, at this point, this park was the biggest play thing in the entire city. And the leaders were like, our children had nothing. They're not going to try and control them a lot. So there were no fences and there were no, you can't do this and at all. Okay, I went on and met with lots and lots and lots of people in villages. Once the living water was done, I went, oh my God, everything should be designed by watershed. Everything. And everything should have those same principles. Well, that wasn't possible, but it didn't stop me from talking about it. And now the Watershed Wisdom Council has put that as their singular goal, is that every watershed, the people start working on the watershed, they team up, they help each other out from the top of the river to the bottom, and the whole watershed gets taken care of. So far, I don't know if there's any places doing it. Anyway, I went to villages, I walked rivers, we're talking with the village here. This guy in the white shirt is a leader. I worked with Jane Goodall. I learned more from Jane than anybody. She's amazing. And when I came back to the school, I also worked on the Olympics in Beijing. I was design director of 5 huge projects. So most people don't know that, and I'm coming out public about it. Like solving how to make the entire situation sustainable. Concrete ditches, concrete rivers, everything, how to do it. And it's not rocket science. It's completely doable. So when I came back here, I was very tired. I drew this huge living water drop. I kept drawing the living water drop as a meditation, produced a whole lot of work around it and how the water creates the heart. The heart is, it's related to the vortices. It's related to the galaxies. It's just like a vortex, a almost self-sustaining pump. That's why it works so well. So a vortex is the singular self-sustaining form in the universe. Anyway, and I also traveled all over China. This is grinds. There's a water wheel underneath and it grinds the root. And I could talk a long time. This piece comes from going into a cave that's sacred for like 3,000 years. And inside is all prayer flags, and you come out and you can eat the food. It's so abundant. It's so alive. It's so incredible. I mean, so this is where I want to focus today, is we're in a time of ginormous change, largely represented as a disaster, a catastrophe, a Holocaust, and all those other words, which I will not use. That's not correct. It is a time of great change, and that's extremely frightening. And some people call it the great vanishing, with all the possibilities of new creation. And so if possible, would like to focus on this. And so this is indeed scary. It's also basically human beings, or we like to know what the next day is going to be, or the next year is going to be, or the rest of our life is going to be. But you know what? You never know that. You never know that. And what comes next, etc. And as I was sort of dealing with all that, or facing all that, I also I never wanted to do an archive. Considered probably, I'd just pass and my stuff would go wherever it goes or be burned. I don't know. But somebody came along and insisted that I do an archive. And I started finding old work, but I also found myself doing collages, which I called depending on the weather. And I'm showing a few of them there, but they poured out of me. Like I did 15 of them. And this one's called, this was when the floods and the fires were going on. And on the other hand, it's also like, I was like, okay, I'm being turned upside down, spun around, having to look at the world differently. This is a maypole that I did like 60 years ago that no one's ever seen. There's a 7,000-year-old woman, and this was the start of the series. Seems like the computer didn't actually do my changes. Oh well, that happens too. And so I had pictures of a great blue heron that I'd spend the summers with, and everything in all of these pictures is either some painting I did or from something that I did. So that the language is very, very personal and very intuitive. I'm not going to even explain it. I call these two the messengers. Prayer flags, burning trees, great blue heron. And then this one popped out, which I call the promise. Now snails only like to live in good water. You only can find them where the environment is healthy. And so then the pink streamers are from the maypole, which was dyed cloth. And recently, what I've been doing in between making visual work and also mentoring people to do living systems and to get started, because the book has inspired people. It's like 8 steps of listening, organizing your community, mapping with the community, and getting programs started that allow a community to become more sustainable. That's the best I could probably explain it. Except that we have to be able to be a tribe. We have to be able to come together with the living world and with each other. None of us can survive separately. You can't. It's not possible. And I think I live in this country where people are, well, I'll just close my gate, have a little garden, or a big estate, and control everything so that I can survive. And the biggest, hugest thing with the indigenous movement in our country is that it is everything that is not that. Everything. We survive together. We take care of the land. We're a community, and that's always been true, and that never got forgotten. As hard as everything was and is. So last January, I was asked to lead a workshop on water. It was January. How can I lead a workshop on water in January? In a concrete room with no windows. And 2 Iranian women and I turned it into like the interior of a tent, a large space. Rugs are on the floor. We put paper around. We had water containers. And as people came in, there were about 30 people there. And they had a choice to sit on the floor or sit in the chair. And I started with a meditation. Place a water drop on your finger. That's your teacher. I'm not your teacher. And that experience, at the end of that experience, then we moved into movement and sound and drawing, and everything could have been longer. We had the space for 2 hours. People had new ideas. People got hope. I don't even know I have a language to describe what happened. I know that I felt really happy in my heart, and that if we listen to water the answers are there. They're there. And all the different things we know, and I know there's people in this room who know a great deal about water, stormwater treatment, all that. And all that is really helpful and really necessary and must be. But until people can come to you or the community and say, okay, we need to do this. How are we going to do this? Then people, those people who have developed these skills, you're absolutely essential. So go back to him. Then this summer, I went on a road trip, and I called it a old lady on a road trip, but then I called it a pilgrim on a pilgrimage. And I ended up spontaneously meeting with groups of people. I didn't go on the trip to do this. And there are 25 people gathered in this room in Ithaca, New York. And we discussed how they are totally, absolutely unprepared for the changes. Completely unprepared. The only thing they're doing is economic development. And they're destroying the what would be essential to help absorb water or contain water or deal with extreme weather concerns, and also just have decent, really good wastewater treatment. They don't even have that. And guess what university is there? Cornell University, Ithaca College, other places too. And they don't have any of that. So it was, who were the people who were the most keen and everyone turned to? They were the people that did a feminist art studio with me in the 70s. And 4 of them came to the meeting, and they know how to work collectively. And so everybody turned to them. Well, we'll see what happens. I don't know what will happen. However, there's a readiness, and there's not people standing up and saying, this is what we have to do. I was another meeting I went to, I'm not going to, in Providence, Rhode Island. I also taught the metabolic studio how to make flow forms recently. And then I decided on 2 weeks' notice, and I don't even know or how to quite talk about what happened, but I'm connected to a group of people who are addressing water in the world on a very deep quantum way. And it's known that water is quantum coherent under all ambient conditions. So anytime you address any body of water, it affects other bodies of water worldwide. So there is this group of people going around and spending time with different bodies of water. And they're down in Maryland, the leader. I decided to, just on 2 weeks' notice, pull together a meditation in front of Mary Mattingly's piece about sea level rising. So this is like everything moving up, the plant life moving up. It's a really brilliant piece. Person sitting next to me is my son. And wow, so weird how I feel almost odd talking about this. So the person in Maryland asked me to go down to the East River and take an audio of the East River for 2 minutes. She had a group down there listening to what we were doing up here on the East River, which was listening to it. That's a performance event. So probably people came thinking there would be a performance, but the performance is listening. And we gave everybody shells, and I should have put up the tape. I'm sorry I didn't. And there was somebody there who had a shell on a drum and was the loudest sound. And we sat there. I thought it had been maybe 20 minutes, but it turned out to be 45 minutes. And the upshot was that some people really heard the river. And I think some people were probably bored. And the group down in Maryland was completely connected to the river. So were some people online on Zoom. And what the river is basically saying is, I'm taking care of you. I'm taking care of you. Be happy. Be happy. Not saying stop polluting me and everything like that, which is true, should happen. But basically, the river, which has been there 11,000 years and is a connector of the Atlantic Ocean and the Long Island Sound, it's not really a river, was so thrilled to have our attention. That's all I can, and I have no proof of that. I can't prove that. So here's water's functioning coherent under all ambient conditions. And we'll see in the discussion if people want to know what that really means more than that. But what I say in my book is that, how do I get rid of this? Is that if you clean up a tiny little stream, this stream next to it's going to say, me too, me too. Come clean me too. So there's as you all know, there's a lot of discouragement and people are so discouraged. So I wrote this a while ago. Your spirit can't be left down. It's the last cry of those who cannot love, cannot understand, and want to control what they cannot control. The human spirit will always burst forward. And in this time of the great vanishing, we as people who are part of it can read it with joy and be part of it. Because we are completely part of creation. And it is creation that is inevitably going forward. And Mother Nature is the most creative force we can ever have. So I think that's what I have to say. And I'd really love people to go into a small group. I have to see how much more time where we're at. And yes, for at least 8 minutes each person, talk about and let yourself have a knowing that you have all the things you need to go forward. Don't like say, oh, I could never do that, or I won't get any money to do that. And all the tapes in our mind, put them aside. Put them aside and dare to step out into the edge of where you don't know what's going to happen. We don't know. You know, and I don't know. And sometimes I'm like, well, maybe I'm just in the river for the next 2 years and communicate what she says. I also don't know exactly what I will be doing.
Yeah. Oh, if we did 9 minutes, everybody would get 3 minutes.
No, we're going to do 20 minutes.
Oh, you want everybody to talk for 8 minutes?
6 minutes each.
Okay, well, that would, you know what? If we do that, we'll be done. Yeah, then we'll be done and come back and then share together. Okay, do you want to stop your screen share to see everybody?
I got it.
There we
Yay.
go.
How many people
Great.
do you?
All right, so Leah and
I can start that right now if you want.
Okay,
Okay. Recreate, assign.
so everybody knows how to do the breakout rooms. You're going to get a little invite to go to a room.
Okay.
One thing quickly is the workshop is going to be an intense listening time. And then after that, brainstorming how to start being together and how just coming into really deep friendship with nature and with each other. Saturday night is going to play. There'll be a lot of play, but there's also a lot of time to listen.
Here, I'll share the poster for that. Here's the workshop. It's going to be in Rough and Ready, California, October 13th, 14th, 15th, coming on Friday night and then leaving about noon. And it'll be held in a grange, an old historic agricultural grange in Rough and Ready Hall, Rough and Ready, California. And there's lots of information on this poster, and if you'd like information, I'll put the link to the registration in the chat. Okay.
Sounds good.
Okay. Deanna, tell us how it's going.
I think I've just about got everybody assigned to a room. And then I can double check whether or not every room has a assignment. Let's see.
Great. Okay. All right, Betsy.
Okay, I'll just start and say I'm super grateful that all of you chose to be here. That these are lines of kinship and communication, and they don't disappear after we close the meeting. If any of you are inclined, you can send some things to Keepers, and we have a newsletter. But I'm also teaming up with two other water organizations now. One called the Watershed Wisdom Council, and their goal is to have people all organizing around their watersheds from top to bottom. And I'm working on that with them. So there'll also be experts like and other people that people can turn to for technical information. So we're building this network right now. Right. And that's with WEED and Water Unity, which is international. And so I'd love to hear from people. If you want to say anything briefly, that would be great, or questions. And I can only stand for about another 10 or 15 minutes because my family's clamoring, experience something with vision, spare vision, whatever.
Betsy, there are some requests for links, or if you could repeat the names of the organizations you just mentioned about organizing by watershed, I think.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
Oh.
I could put some of that information in. You want me to put it in for you, Betsy?
Sure. Put in the whole information for the Watershed Wisdom. And also, I'll ask Elizabeth for the exact, also World Water Unity.
Mm-hmm.
I'll ask her for that too.
Mm-hmm.
And I put it in before, but I'll put in the link to the workshop.
Right.
Again.
Yeah. I mean, workshop, it will be a time to really give yourself a lot of space it's not going to be activity after activity and there'll be opportunities, but basically the Yuma River is up there, and weather permitting, we're hoping to people to be able to go down and be with her with your lunch for several hours. And also on Saturday evening, have just a time of sharing and music. And then on Sunday, to have a time of brainstorming, ideas, thoughts, how to get started, what you'd love to do ideally, developing the kinship to support each other. And then there's people here who have many skills. I'll just say Christina Berta. I know there's others that also have, really amazing skills. Holly, wherever Holly is, but she's still on. Oh, there you are, Holly. Holly Ewald has amazing skills. So you're not going to
Maybe Holly, tell us about what your skills are.
She's not going to tell you. I'll tell you. She organized all the children and the whole community to do a wetland to clean a lake. And she really knows how to do it. She really, as a humble on the boots in the mud human. But I'm going to get you to write something up. We'll put it in a keeper's newsletter. Okay, she's unmuted. So anyway, I met her purely by accident because the clutch blew out on my car and I was stuck in Providence. So, so other questions or just thoughts?
I was personally intrigued by people's interpretations of like water and communication. Like on the like scientific level, but also like it's laughing, and or the feelings that completely contradict even like what you have in your mind going into it of what you might think or project this body of water to understand or feel, and then to kind of have this revelation that it's actually saying something completely different. I found that really fascinating. And I feel like I've heard this enough time, even just in my life, just like that it sticks out as like a thread that I want to pull at a little bit.
I was totally shocked when my friend, I'd broken both my femurs, so I couldn't go into a quickly slimy edge of the East River and hold my phone there. She had to do it. When she was communicating with Myra, both their bodies started tingling. That Myra's down in Maryland. We were up in New York. Both their bodies were tingling. And then that was the communication that was happening. And then apparently, I mean, only thing I can tell you is I had to go home and sleep like a long time. I slept deeply, but what got reflected back to me through some of the people was that I got to be this open channel, really open channel. And then there are other things I need to learn about how to take care of that for myself, but that the water was just thrilled. Just totally like, wow. And there's some kind of feeling that takes place through all that, which I don't know if people understand that yet.
I just wanted to say, I really appreciate you talking about your communication with the river, because I've had a similar experience with the Smith River. And my family has a very close relationship with the Smith. We visit her every summer. And my sister-in-law and brother-in-law helped found the Smith River Alliance. And I've had that experience too. And I just didn't, I'm really always afraid to express that in my artwork or in my statements, because people are looking at me like I'm a little woo-woo and I've gendered her, and we have conversations, and it was kind of similar where she's speaking to me with urgency, but it's more about a cosmic kind of state of things, the state of always becoming. And whether or not you humans are here in 50 years, I probably will be. And she said, I'm okay.
Like communicating desperation and despair, ain't it?
Right. But I feel very freed listening to you speak the way you do about this, and it's going to free me up to say a little bit more and not be too self-conscious about it. And I appreciate that.
Don't feel self-conscious about it, but so like I was just like, oh no, I've got to start talking, and I've had some incredibly beautiful experiences with certain people, just beautiful. But it's time to talk about it. I know there were 6 words in my book, and there was one person. Now I only have 3 pages where I mentioned that water is consciousness. Water is the medium, the message, and the medium. And one person thought it might be too woo-woo. That's how oppressed. That is how oppressed. And also any language that implies that we are not dominant. We are not the all-dominating, entitled species on this earth has been taken out in the last 100 years or 200 years. Any language, and recently that's gotten really, really. So, but we are not. There's things here that the waters are way more powerful. Mary Elizabeth Carroll said it was the whales who taught her. So she started the Watershed Wisdom Council, and she knows how to do whale calling. So we will do some things like that at the workshop. Just a few. I think we've substituted quietness with set exercises. That's how we get through our days, kind of where the fear is. And so the workshop will be an opportunity to be in the company, but also with yourself without those props.
Betsy, I have a question. Tell us a little bit about your thoughts for what you're going to do for your Guggenheim. I realize I don't really even know.
Well, supposedly
you can gather some support from us.
Well, I wrote it to create a sculpture. I call it a sculpture because that's what I am. That will clean water using nanocellulose and the heartbeat. And both these things are not expensive, but I have to test it and I have to build it. And also, I suspect that the creatures that lived in a body of water, the ducks or even the aquatic creatures, but also birds, that their sounds impact water quality. But nobody's approached that at all. So I'm trying to do that. But I also have to just cost a lot more money than it is. I have talked to one scientist who I really want to work with, and he knows so much. Like he knows all the different parts of the water lily and how they help the water. He knows so much. He's very, very busy. So I'm also looking for scientists who are on that edge, not using engineering, but using that technique. Opposite. Many people do. Thank you, Mary. Sometimes I feel it's preposterous that I want to do this. I'm 82 years old, and shoes. Right on. Anyway,
Thanks for being a role model there.
Mhm.
okay, anybody else?
Well, in our group, actually, I think there were several people that were interested in what you said about water being quantum coherent under all ambient conditions. And you mentioned
Okay,
I'd love to hear some more about that, or have a link, ideas of where to go to read more.
it's biochemistry. Well, Mei Wan Ho, The Rainbow and the Worm. Somebody Jorky, I can't put that down. I say a little bit about what that means is that the coherence of water, no matter what state it's in, whether it's polluted or it's a mist or it's doing this or it's doing that, it's always coherent. It's always coherent. That H2O molecule thing is just unbelievable. And even if way there out in space, that H molecule is running around looking for a hookup over miles, 10,000s of miles. It's always looking to hook up. And so that's always going on. And it's always creating, it's always H2O. Now, apparently, water was here, the isotope, before sunlight. I just learned that. I can't tell you what it means, except I just learned that. That's kind of really astonishing. So yeah, I was interested in how water creates life. And, you know, we didn't all crawl out of an ocean. I think the water's hitting the rocks and creating mist was probably one of the things that it created, essentially basic life form stuff. There's many more things. So 2 more questions. I don't know if I answered your questions. There's a lot. My book is a very good read because I wanted it to be readable by anybody 70 to 95 without the science stuff being mystified. So also, well, thank you. Anybody? Yes, hi, Rachel.
I don't know if it's really so much of a question, but I'm really excited by that quote you just said, because I'm a ceramic artist and like we couldn't have clay without the interaction of rock and water. And I particularly slip cast, so like you have to add a deflocculant, which changes the particle charge. So the clay actually acts more like water without adding more water, which is like super crazy and interesting. But so in the exhibition I was talking about in our small group, I'm really diving into this like interaction between water and clay and how this is really becoming like a metaphor for my understanding of like time in general, because like humans see time on such a small scale. But listening to water and going down to a creek side and like putting your hand in the water and touching the rocks underneath the water's edge, and you can feel that erosion actually happening. It just like submerges your entire body in like this particle interaction that takes me away from this like tiny perspective and like makes me jump out of my body a little bit. And so I just want to thank you so much for this talk because it's been so affirming and inspiring. Thanks, Betsy.
Well, thank you all. I'll add one more thing. A drop of water contains more information than a giant computer. Digest that. It's hard to digest that. And we treat it like a sewer. Okay. Maybe we'll continue in some other way sometime, somehow. We'll look at you. Okay, yeah. Is anybody going away?
We can also save the chat if that's of interest to anybody, since there were so many links put in there and everything.
That would be great. Save the chat. And keepersofthewaters.org. It's easy to find. Easy to find.